Couples of Reddit, what's the most unromantic thing that's happened between the two of you that actually is a stronger indication of love than others might think? When we'd been married about 10 years, 2 little kids, jobs not paying enough to cover daycare and bills, and were having the sort of fight that these stresses can precipitate. It was a nasty one. We were not holding back with unkind things said to each other. And then the phone rang. My dad was in the hospital 1200 miles away. He'd had a stroke. Docs were unsure whether he'd live. The fight stopped, and she told me to get in the car and go to the airport. She'd have tickets waiting for me at the counter. She'd call my boss and explain that I was flying across the country. Take how much time I needed. She would take care of the house and the kids, and to not worry about anything but taking care of my family. Dad made it a few years after that, but now I know that no matter how hard life gets, and however much 2 volatile pig-headed jerks fight and yell, she isn't just on my team, she is my team. We'll be married 30 years this year. Life happens, and sometimes people aren't perfect, but when the world is against me, that little woman will grab my arm, and we'll roar together, and nothing will break us. I grew up with my grandparents BC. Both my parents had to work various jobs simultaneously, so my grandfather was my world. I took care of him during his last 5 years, when he became bedridden. I tried to visit him as often as I could. He lived with an elderly aunt who fed him, but needed me to bathe him, and, eventually, change his diapers and so on. Early in our relationship, my now wife would come over sometimes. One time I got to his house and found his fridge full and him watching TV, eating a bowl of ice cream. My wife had gone a few hours before me without telling me. 6 months later I proposed. My boyfriend made me go to the gynecologist to talk about getting an ablation after watching me struggle from crippling pain and bleeding every month for years. He said not to worry about money or anything else besides solving my problem. Fast forward 2 months, and I got a call from my surgeon. Apparently I missed the fact that they did a biopsy when they removed my polyps and found uterine cancer. Had I been stubborn and continued to ignore my miserable periods for years, who knows what could have happened to me. No one expects uterine cancer in someone under 30. He held me while I cried, took me to every appointment, and helped me when I recovered after my hysterectomy. That dude is my rock. My boyfriend texted me one day when he was at the gym that he believed his rectum had prolapsed. No idea how, but I started googling what we needed to do about it. I read that if it wasn't serious, you could just push it back in before going to a doctor instead of heading to the ER. So what do? Put on a pair of gloves, lube my finger up, and kneel in front of him while he's lying on the bed attempting to push part of his rectum back into his anus. Turns out it was just a giant hemorrhoid when he went to the doctors the next day. But I think that was a moment in our relationship where it was established that we both had complete comfort with each other. If your partner can try and shove part of your rectum up into your bum, then nothing is really too disgusting or gross to discuss. During her first pregnancy, my wife vomited brown, congealed blood every night for her entire second trimester. We went to multiple doctors and took a few trips to the ER. Never got a reason why. The vomiting happened every night after midnight, sometimes continuing sporadically for 8 hours. Don't know why, but it never happened during the daytime. One night, she thought she was finally doing better, so she went to sleep early and seemed fine. Then suddenly around 1 AM, she jolted awake, which instantly woke me and tried to run to the bathroom to puke, forgetting the puke bucket on her bedside table in her moment of panic. Unfortunately, she slipped and fell on her side. Nothing hit her belly and puked blood all over the carpet. She immediately started sobbing. That poor woman went through such a rough time. So I carefully picked her up, took her to the bathroom, held her hair back while she finished throwing up, then cleaned her face and got her some water to rinse her mouth out. I carried her to bed and then got to work cleaning up the carpet. We were just kids, still in college together. Those 3 months of misery galvanized our relationship. Nothing serious has ever come between us in the years since. Edit. Just wanted to add, another great side effect of constantly seeing disgusting fluids erupt out of my wife is that we are both completely comfortable around each other's bodily functions. None of this. I don't want my husband to know I poop nonsense. My wife passes out a lot. It has to do with a medical condition she has, but it can happen at almost any time. I've become so good at recognizing how she feels that I know when she's going to go before she does, and I've gotten very good at catching her. It may look unromantic, and it can be, but her knowing I'm there and me recognizing her signs are a big thing for us. Edit. Wow, this blew up while I was asleep. Thank you all for the kind words, and I had no idea how common this was. To answer some common questions, no, we don't currently have a service dog. We have a golden doodle who failed out of service dog school, lol. Her condition is POTS, and she normally only passes out when standing. She goes through episodes, sometimes passing out several times a day and needing to be hospitalized. Other times she goes weeks or months without passing out, and she's a nurse. My wife was so sick, like could barely stand sick. She crawled to the toilet and was rolling and groaning from stomach pain. She's never been able to make herself vomit on command. I got her over the toilet, had her take a few deep breaths, and jammed my fingers down her throat with warning and permission. She demon spewed all over my hand in the toilet. Pretty chunky and sticky, but she felt so much better. Definitely pranking each other thoroughly. I spent a little more than a year randomly sending him emails from a man named Nalan. He works in customer service, and I made the most ridiculous case for him to solve involving a balloon business. Once in a while, during a slow time at my job, good old Nalan would email him. Last message was about Nalan asking the hubs to join him in a doomsday bunker. I finally decided to tell him the truth on our anniversary, which is on April 1st. He got me back this Christmas. He anonymously sent me a super low rent Chevy Chase coloring book. I greatly dislike Chevy Chase, to put it mildly. He enjoyed me plotting revenge against my friends, and even egged me on. He finally admitted the truth on New Year's Eve. I plan to retaliate in the near future. I'm prone to developing cysts. Mostly they just hang out, and sometimes go away on their own, but every once in a while one will get infected randomly. I had one such cyst on the back of my neck a few years ago. It was so painful, and I was in agony. One day, it just burst open on its own. I won't go into detail, but suffice it to say, it was really disgusting. My husband is very squeamish about these kinds of things, but without hesitation, he very lovingly made sure that all of the infectious material was purged, cleaned out the crater it left in its wake, and put antibiotic cream on it. He religiously checked and cleaned the wound twice a day until it healed, and would put clean bandages on it as needed. I don't even mind the scar it left, because it reminds me of his TLC, even though I'm 100% sure it grossed him out. 4 months into dating my husband, boyfriend at the time obviously, he had to take me to my colonoscopy. I didn't have any family in town and it just made sense for him to take me. Afterwards I laid in his bed while he tried to convince me to pass gas so I wouldn't be in pain. He started farting to try to make me feel better, lol. A few hours after resting, I had to go to the gym to get my IUD in. So he had to take care of me all day from being sore in my nether regions. To top it off, it was his birthday. It was the single most selfless thing anyone has ever done for me. I recently had a second heart catheterization to check my heart for blockages. Thankfully there were none. Unfortunately this time they needed to go through my femoral artery in my groin and I needed to remain on bed rest for about 4 hours after the procedure. I had not eaten all day in preparation for the surgery, so when I got out I was famished. The nurse brought me hospital dinner, but I could not sit upright to feed myself. My lovely wife of 10 years, who has been a solid rock for me through this ordeal, was excited at the opportunity to feed me. I'm only 32 years old, so being in this predicament and being unable to feed myself was rather humbling. She happily cut my roast beef and potatoes and fed me a bite at a time. You could just tell that she loved being able to serve me in this way. It was not in any way a burden, or a chore, or a nuisance. She didn't take advantage of the situation to make a humiliating "here comes the airplane" joke. She just carefully fed me and saw to my needs. I know in her heart she had felt rather useless because all my fear and anxiety was pent up inside. She loved having some way to show that she was there for me in a weak and frankly scary moment of my life. She is much better than I deserve, and I'm so crazy in love with her. Edit. My first gold ever. My beautiful wife gets the credit. Thank you. Edit 2. Platinum 2. Wow. Thank you. Edit 3. Oh, and just for the record, it would have been cool with me if she made a silly joke while feeding me. We have a silly, playful relationship. She's my best friend. So, it would have been cool. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for threads you would like to see done, drop them in the comments below, and I will try to get to them.